Hi everyone, this is a presentation that we gave at GDS in September of 2009 about eco-materials for footwear. And basically it's a summary of some of the information that we have about sustainable materials in Think Again, our design thinking toolkit for autumn-winter 10-11 and spring-summer 11. Now Think Again does also include information about eco-construction, but that was not the focus of this presentation. However, if you are interested in that information, just contact us and we will tell you how you can get your hands on that. In Think Again, we focus on the design principles behind the upcoming trends, combining information from all areas of industrial design and footwear, and featuring both commercial and more experimental ideas. The first principle that we would like to talk about is how to use all natural dyes and finishes. In Think Again, we feature a few interesting inspirational projects on this subject, from printing with vegetable dyes to using the natural colors of clay to printing and finishing with bacteria. For instance, Dutch design duo Christophe Brach and Daniera Ter Haar created a project called 100% sap, which is 100% juice in Dutch. And what they did was they transformed vegetables into ink and then applied the ink to posters that were coated in certain areas so the ink would only stick to those areas and the viewers could see the print grow. They then took their project to the next level called raw color, for which they made a very extensive color palette out of vegetable dyes only, and they even used their vegetable inks in inkjet printer. Now obviously these vegetable dyes and inks are still experimental, but Dutch company Rubia is the first to produce a commercial all vegetable dye. They grow their own plants called madder plants that are indigenous to the Netherlands and then extract the dye from the roots, and by now they are able to cover about 40% of the entire color spectrum with this vegetable dye, and of course they are working on covering the other 60% as well. They were given the Global Organic Textile Standard approval as the first vegetable dye company in the world. And from what we've been told, they are also working now on applying this type of dye to leather. Of course, if you make shoes out of canvas or felt, you can already use this dye right now. Or what you might want to do is create a home coloring system using vegetables and fruits. We remember Italian brand D-Side having a home coloring system for footwear a couple of years ago, where you would just throw your shoes in the washing machine and they would end up kind of like this. And obviously you could do the same thing with vegetable dyes, just the one problem is that if you were to ship vegetable or fruit dyes with your footwear, you would need different licenses because obviously you are shipping food. So another alternative might be to create a website with instructables on how to dye your own shoes with vegetables. I mean, this shoe by Springcourt was dyed chemically, but that looks to us as if it was done with beet juice. Since dyeing leather still requires a lot of chemicals, the best option for now might be not to dye at all or as little as possible. For instance, these shoes by OXS are just made in natural veg tan leather that was not colored, and the color differences here are just achieved using abrasive finishes. Finsk, on the other hand, only dyed part of their shoes because the heel, the purple, is actually from an indigenous Finnish wood that already has this purple color. And this brings us to the next principle, which is about using only natural sustainable materials. Here we find a lot of developments, with many companies continually finding new natural resources to use and new ways to apply them. On the left we see one that's already known, bamboo, but we included this to show that natural fabrics do not have to look granola or alternative, because this satin and this denim optically really is not distinguishable from fabrics that are not made in a sustainable way. Next to that we see a relatively new material called bark cloth, and this is actually the bark of a tree from Uganda. It can be harvested each year without having to cut the tree down, and you can give the bark several finishes and colors, and as we will see further on, it's actually a great replacement for leather because it kind of looks like suede. Then next to that we see a product by a Dutch company called Brennels, and they are experimenting with making fabric from stinging nettle. And the advantage of that is that it's a really strong plant that does not require any pesticides whatsoever and very little water, which makes it even more sustainable than certain types of flask and hemp. We even find natural materials that were highly unlikely for footwear before. For instance, this is stone. There's a German company that found a way to slice stone into really thin layers, for instance, creating this type of translucent concrete. You could laminate it to a fabric backing and then use it for straps or something. Although you might wonder how sustainable this really is, apart from the laminating, because of course stone is not easily renewable at all. Eco-brand Pozu was among the first to actually use bark cloth for shoes. This is what they look like. As you can see, they have completely different finishes and textures. We were told by them though that it is still quite fragile for shoes, especially for areas that are prone to damage. So in collaboration with the German bark cloth company, they are now working on a new variety that is reinforced with natural latex. Mixing fabric and natural latex rubber is a principle that we already know from outsoles such as these that are hemp and latex. One objection that you might have when it comes to sustainability though is that mixing materials together like this will make it more difficult to take them apart when you want to recycle them after use. That is why we now see discussion whether it's not more sustainable in the end to actually use mono materials. The same problem occurs when you are using fabrics in the upper. For instance, if you are using hemp for reasons of sustainability, it doesn't make much sense to do it like this. Because if you want to make such perforations, it means you will have to laminate the hemp onto a backing. So it just means adding extra chemicals. And even if you use a water-based glue, you will make it quite difficult to recycle this material after use because you will have to use extra energy and sometimes also chemicals to take them apart again.